Hi, and welcome to Terribly Fun Films. I'm your host, Bobby, and today we're continuing with our Dragon Con countdown. As you probably surmised from the title of today's video, Stan Lee is going to be at Dragon Con. Stan Lee is, of course, best known for creating or co-creating roughly 19 billion different comics and or comic characters that are some of the most well-known, well-regarded, and long-running comics. After leaving Marvel, DC, wherever he was working at various times, he kind of became a brand unto himself. Under that brand, which has had various names, he has made comics, he's made straight DVD movies, he made a Sci-Fi Channel original film, which I've already reviewed, and he's made direct-to-DVD animated films. As of this recording, only 3 direct-to-DVD animated movies exist: The Condor, Mosaic, and today's topic, Mighty 7, which does have a comic as well. I am uncertain if the comic or the movie came first. Before we get into the review proper, let's get a little bit of history out of the way. This movie's full title, as based on the Blu-ray that I own, is Stan Lee's Mighty 7, Beginnings, and that is because it was originally intended to be the first in a trilogy of films. They were made for TV. Here in the United States of America, it aired on the Hub Network. However, it got bought out. The Hub Network got bought out after the first movie was made and aired, but before the others went into production, and then became Discovery Family, so the trilogy never finished off. And that's a little bit sad, because as you'll see in my review, this is a fun little film. Part of what makes the movie so much fun is just its meta concept. The movie opens with Stan Lee going for a late night drive out in the desert to clear his mind. He was just hired by Archie Comics to launch a new franchise, and they rejected his first 3 ideas. He's trying to figure out what to do. While he's driving, he sees a spaceship crash. Spaceship contains 2 space cops, for lack of a better term, transporting 5 criminals, and the criminals get out of their pen and sabotage the ship, which is why it crashes. A minute or less after they crash land, the U.S. government shows up and wants to, well, get a hold of these beings. So Stan Lee agrees to help the beings, and the beings agree, given that some are cops and some are criminals, to help each other in order to get off the planet so that they can, you know, not die. Then it's revealed that the government knew about it because an evil alien species of lizard people, basically, are actually here on Earth getting ready to drain the Earth of all its natural resources and destroy the human population. So, our 7 main aliens need to hide from the government, fight the evil lizard people, and grant Stan Lee the rights to turn their story into a comic book. I'm pretty sold on this. Again, this is also a comic series consisting of at least a few books. I have not read any of the 6 issues in this, but I have seen this one movie, and it's a strong and fun concept that, thanks to the writing by Tony Blake and Paul Jackson, is used very humorous and fun effect without feeling like it's pandering, nor does it feel like it's dumbing down for its audience, but also doesn't feel like it's talking down to its audience. This is clearly meant for children in terms of the action and the plot and that sort of thing, But these meta jokes work real nicely in that regard. Like, there's a pretty great joke about contract lawyers that is really funny. In context, a child who at least knows what a lawyer is will be able to find it funny and still understand the joke. Adults will appreciate it just because everybody likes a good scummy lawyer joke. The creative team, the story by Stan Lee and Tony Blake and Paul Jackson again, who also wrote the screenplay and the comic that this comes from, also should get some heavy marks for really nailing down great use of flashbacks throughout the film. So we see our prisoners being transported, we see them escape their cells, sabotage the ship. They don't necessarily intend it to crash, they're just trying to take it over. And, you know, the marshals firing back is what causes it to crash. But throughout the course of the film, we'll get a flashback to how each person wound up in the situation they were in order to be arrested and considered a fugitive. And they're done really, really well. They're not heavy-handed, they don't feel forced, they are natural and organic into the pacing of the movie. And granted, they're not necessarily making the characters three-dimensional, fully rounded type deal, but they are adding enough backstory to make them empathetic and sympathetic and engaging, and will definitely keep younger viewers glued to their seat, as I think this works really well. Specifically, I think Rollerman's backstory as a former soldier who basically has seen enough and goes AWOL is really well handled. Now, that's not to say the other backstories don't work. All the characters are at least interesting and engaging, and when the backstories come up, you do feel for them, and they are interesting. Just personally speaking, I find Rollerman the most engaging. So, the other thing the writing does really well, besides handling within the meta concept, is, like, contract lawyer jokes, sure. But in the middle of these aliens prepping to fight the evil lizard people, Stanley's having an artist draw up mocks of what these people would look like. And again, they are different from the actual character designs we see for most of the film, because it's the comic within the movie, and one of them complains that he's bald in real life and they gave him hair and things like that. That's actually really funny, really fun jokes. I'm curious about how much of that came from real life interactions with some celebrities and whatnot that some of these characters are based on, and how much is just good old fashioned ribbing. As for the evil Hygons, which are the lizard creatures, they're really boring bad guys. We gotta have negatives here in terms of writing. They're very boring, they're very dull. They're simply an evil race who wants to come to Earth and take over everything. There's really nothing to them. Why they're doing this is never really explained. And again, this was meant to be part of a larger something, so maybe that would have come out further down the line. But it is a problem in this first movie to not know that sort of thing. Their designs are nice. I'll get to the animation in a little bit though. But I would say in terms of the writing, plot, pacing, characterizations, the worst aspect of it is the bad guys. They're dull. The U.S. government also, very typical U.S. government stuff. If you've seen The Day the Earth Stood Still, if you've seen E.T., if you've seen any movie about aliens on Earth, you know how the government will react. But yeah, for the most part, I would say the plot is really well thought out. The meta stuff is really well handled. And our main characters are really interesting and engaging. Which, all grade A pluses. They're, again, minute negatives for the writing in terms of, oh, the bad guys are simply evil to be evil. Given that this is a kid's movie, I am actually okay with it. I was just, you know, rambling as I do. And I wish the U.S. government was fleshed out a little bit more, but again, maybe that was meant to come in a later story that never happened. I don't know. Now we're going to talk about the voice acting, and this is going to be a real interesting cast once you hear everybody. Playing Stan Lee in the animated movie is, of course, Stan Lee. Stan Lee has always clearly been a funny guy. The first movie I remember seeing him in any way, shape, or form, in terms of not a convention appearance and that sort of thing, and sort of just kind of making fun of himself, with Mallrats. I'm not saying that's the first one, but that's the first one I recall seeing him in. It was very clear from that he just enjoys life. He wants to have a good time. He does bring that enthusiasm here, but it's only an okay performance. It's Stan Lee, and at times it sounds like he's reading lines as opposed to full-on going in with it. Those are some of the more dramatic sequences. However, his character's, I would say, 90% jokes and or one-liners, and he does deliver those with some really good timing. Armie Hammer plays the sort of leader of our space cops. They're considered marshals within the film's terminology for them. But I'm calling them space cops because space cops just sounds cool. Funny enough, he plays a character named Strong Arm. Granted, that is the name of the character that Stan Lee named him within the comic, within the movie. So, you know, not the character's actual name, but still, that's humorous all on its own terms. Fairly good here. He does have the more serious role, but he delivers everything with gusto and verve, and you believe him as, like, the sort of strong, authoritarian cop-type character. Christian Slater is Laser Lord, the sort of worst of our felons that we see being transported before the ship crashes. He's out to prove his own innocence against a murder that Strong Arm even witnessed. And Strong Arm and him used to be best friends before that, so there's lots of tension there, and he just kind of goes off and does his own thing. He's very hot-headed, and Christian Slater does a good job. It's very much within the Christian Slater mold, character-wise. If you've seen My Worst Enemy, or if you've seen Assassin's Bullet, or things like that, it's not a huge stretch for him to do, but he does do it well. He's clearly having fun, and it's an enjoyable performance. Maya Malik is Lady Lightning, and she's the speedster of the group. She's got, you know, flash type powers, super speed, that sort of thing. She's a lot of fun. I think she gives a really interesting performance in that, due to what we found out about her character and stuff, she does a good job of handling that arc and bringing the sort of sympathy very much to the foreground there. Terry Hatcher is Silver Skylark. She flies, and she's the other marshal along with Armie Hammer's Strong Arm character. And she's great. She is my second favorite voice acting job in the movie. Her dad's a big shot political guy who's head of some sort of Federation Space Council thing, and her gradual warming up to these characters and her defiance of her fiance, Strong Arm, to help the criminals, not the evil lizard people, but, you know, the 5 felons they were transporting when their spaceship crashed. Works really well. It makes sense. It doesn't feel rushed. Part of that's due to the writing, of course, and part of that is just due to how much she's able to bring to the character and make you buy in to somebody who believes in the law, but more spirit of the law type thing. And I think she gets that really well down. Shockingly enough, Flea has a voice in this film. You might be scratching your head wondering, how does the Flea talk? Not a Flea, but the musician Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. This is not his first acting gig, not nearly the first film I've seen him in. Hell, I watched a movie he was in not that long ago, being Adam Rifkin's The Chase. He plays Rollerman, who I think has the best character arc, and I think Fleet does a really good job here. He makes the character's heartbreak at the horrors he witnessed in war very believable, very intense, yet never quite so severe and serious that you question it being in a kid's movie, and he still does bring some lighthearted fun, especially to the power that his character does. His character's bigger and turns himself into a ball and just mows down his characters like they're bowling pins. So he gets some one-liners off of that. He gets some one-liners off of how big he is. So there's definitely levity to be had there, and I think Flea does a good job of balancing everything nicely. Darren Crisis plays Micro, who is probably between 13 and 15 years old, and he can shrink. Thus he's called Micro. He's probably the worst voice actor here. I don't know. There's something about the voice that seemed off to me. I think that he's just really wants to, like, he's bright-eyed and wonders at everything and is in awe of everything. And I don't, that's there in the writing. I don't think that comes through properly within the voice acting. It definitely sounds like somebody reading the lines, trying. It's the difference between somebody acting really, really well and you noticing that somebody is in fact acting, if that makes sense. Sean Astin is Kid Kinergy, which is the most awkward name here, who uses kinetic energy to move things with his mind, telekinesis. Sean Astin does a good job. Sean Astin's fun. Sean Astin is very Sean Astin. You know what I mean? Just, Sean Astin always delivers a solid, fun job, and he delivers a solid, fun job here. The leader of the U.S. military, Mr. Cross, is played by Jim Belushi, and unless I wasn't looking at the IMDb credits right now, I wouldn't have guessed that to be Jim Belushi, which I'm not sure what that says about the voice acting. Either he did a really good job of masking it, or I just don't give enough shit about Jim Belushi to know what he sounds like. Either way, he does a perfectly acceptable, fine job. Michael Ironside plays our main bad guy, Xandar, the leader of the Tygon lizard people, and he's great. I love Michael Ironside as a villain. I love Michael Ironside as a hero. I just love Michael Ironside. Michael Ironside is always a lot of effing fun for me. And I think he does the best job here. He oozes slime. And there's no, like, facial tics or anything to see because it's animated, so it all just comes from his voice. Slippery, slimy, tons of fun. Really enjoyed that performance there. So, oddly enough, IMDb, Wikipedia, and superhero movies don't have editor or director listed, so I had to put in the movie and write them down when I watched the end credits in order to get who did that. What a weird thing. Like, it's not their fault they're not in here. Like, I know it's not IMDb's fault that no one listed that, and it's not Wikipedia's fault, and that sort of thing, but it's just odd that they're not listed anywhere. Anyway, Mighty 7 was directed by Lee Ning. I do hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's a really good job. The camera angles, the camera shots, and the cinematography are all very, very dynamic and engrossing. It's some really awesome, cool shots that if I were directing it, I don't think I would have thought of, but it does make the action much more intense, much more kinetic, and much more engaging than it would be otherwise, especially if you compare them to either Mosaic or The Condor, Stanley's other two animated films of this similar mold. And that goes a long way towards helping against the so-so animation. The character designs are really strong, really good. I imagine it's also because it was also a comic book. But the animation, while everything's integrated well with each other, there's a noticeable lack of quality. Maybe it's... I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly how to describe it. it is nowhere near the worst animation I've seen. Like, I've watched The Asylum's Troll Band people. I've seen terrible animation, and it's horrifying. This is nowhere near that. But if you're familiar with the best of DC's animated direct-to-DVD videos, like New Frontier or Flashpoint Paradox, then compare those to this, which is, you know, like 6 years after New Frontier came out. More. I can't quite remember when that got released to DVD and Blu-ray. Those two are much stronger in terms of the animation and the style and that sort of thing than here. The backgrounds look okay. The people on them look okay. They all move okay. Fluidity. That's what I'm going with. While they moved well enough, it definitely seems like maybe there should be a bit more realism to their movements. Yeah, this is animated and we're talking about aliens and superpowers, but your animation still needs to feel organic and work, and it doesn't always, if that makes sense. I don't know if that does, but mind you, this is not terrible animation at all. For a straight DVD film, I promise you I've seen worse animation. It's just really average, and it could have been better. I like the way the characters look. I like the action scenes. I love the editing. I love cinematography and blocking and camera shots. So all of that effort went into something that was just looking like that. You know what I mean? Like, it looks made for TV. Within that, Luke Stone's editing is freaking amazing. Just brilliant stuff. Especially in the action sequences. When the ship is crashing and we see everybody's powers come into full use there, it's really cool, really engaging stuff. Especially for Lady Lightning. And we actually see her moving in slow motion while an explosion is about to happen behind her, and we see it gathering up. And then we cut to regular time, and she's going, well, lightning fast, and the explosion happens. She just makes it out, and it's a really great sequence. It comes down to editing and shot composition there, and I feel those two things are the movie's greatest strength outside of the fairly good writing. Is they understand dynamicism, they understand kinetic action, and what keeps people engaged and that sort of thing. Finally, Cloud Fauci's score is good. Nothing revelatory, nothing, oh my dear God, amazing. But it does work as intended. It helps the action feel amped up. It helps the dramatic moments feel more dramatic, that sort of thing. It is a serviceable score, even if I'm hard-pressed to remember anything about it. I know there's a long rant about the quality of the animation there, but don't let that deter you from seeing the film. It's not the worst animation in the world. It's okay. This movie is very funny, very engaging, very smart, really good writing, mostly a strong voice cast, and if you like Stan Lee, if you like it is worth watching. 100%. Thank you for watching. As always, I've been your host, Bobby, and I will see you next time with more Dragon Con Countdown.